Anyway, I thought I'd comment on the January 6th proceeding in Congress. I saw the fourth part today. I've been watching them as they come on, best I'm able to. And the storyline that develops is that we're seeing an alternative reality pushed by gangsters against people who supposedly take our search for justice and democracy more seriously than Trumpytune. But in a way, what I'm saying is two strange narratives coming at each other. If one of the things we definitely get, assuming that you believe the either or proposition, which to some degree is obvious. Trumpytune obviously committed a crime of fraud and said that the opposite was true. Well, if you buy that that's the only thing that's going on, you hail Mary that he's been caught and something is being done to try to stop it from happening anymore. It gives you some insight into the character of how Hollywood and American awareness have an uneasy coexistence side by side because in Hollywood's abstract reality, um, what Trumpytune said becomes true. University of Pittsburgh would call it the nature of reality. Yoko Ono would call it plastic reality. It becomes true by virtue of him convincing people to believe it. And all the people who are counting votes are doing is another form of plastic reality, convincing people to disbelieve it. Well, the truth is that the search for democracy and justice have a long history, not isolated in the United States. It goes back to ancient Africa, the appearance of man himself and woman herself on earth, the Greek intelligence, the Russian system of government. All of these philosophies of uh, leading a good life, trying to better yourself in religions contributed to the search for justice and democracy. And the bottom line is that one of the things we've agreed on is peaceful transfer of power based on the will of the people. So you count the votes. And it's not Hollywood's jurisdiction. Yoko Ono doesn't get to just say what happened. But what they've done is discreetly created a situation that would be analogous to if the Warren Commission coexisted side by side in back in 64 and 65 and 66, 67, 68 with Oliver Stone's film about Jim Garrison, and there was a battle in the media. Now, you might argue that we know that Trumpytune was lying. That's been proven. And we know that the Warren Commission was lying. That has also been proven. And therefore, there's no direct comparison between the January 6th hearing and Jim Garrison's film because Hollywood is Hollywood and democratic processes of proof and legality aren't don't apply. And if in any way it applies, it's only that Oliver Stone's Jim Garrison is on the side of Trumpytune. Because Jim Garrison's story has created an incomplete picture. But the truth is that Liz Cheney and her drugs, as lovable and admirable as they come over, are in fact on Oliver Stone's side in paving the ground for a new narrative that they want to be able to reveal. An example of how this works comes out in the testimony of two of the witnesses, echoed by Liz Cheney. Lady Ruby and one of the Republicans from Arizona states that the federal system in the Constitution is divinely inspired. And Liz Cheney says it is indeed divinely inspired. No, it is not divinely inspired. If you actually look at it, there was a lot of difficulty in getting it to the point where it is even now. There's nothing divinely inspired about mishandling of a Second Amendment that led to the slaughter in Uvalde. There's nothing divinely inspired about it. There's nothing divinely inspired about slavery, which was written into the original Constitution as lawful, that blacks were 3/5 of a man. Nothing divinely inspired about any of that. It's crude gossip. So what's Liz Cheney really up to? Is she's trying to relegate to herself status as a sort of Son of Sam character, which weighs in for Oliver Stone and Donald Trump. How does it do that? Well, in Wire Club this morning, there was somebody who knew the story of how Obama and Clinton and Robert Fripp said that they were divinely inspired by a letter about a virgin to declare that it proved right. When even the girl in question said she was still a virgin, there was no question of rape involved. But they said it did because they were divinely inspired. So you have this subtext narrative, and it's a very important subtext narrative because what Spike Lee and Donald Trump as partners in New York of Yoko Ono, the Croquet Greguster Corona, are trying to do is an act of nullification. So there was a fellow in Wire Club who knew all of this, who had read one of my poems in which I said something about, the sort of threats that have become routine from these characters who tortured me, poisoned me with a nerve agent, castrated me because they didn't like the idea that they were divinely inspired with. These Son of Sam characters who get divine inspiration and that tells them what's true. Had read a poem of mine where I had said, "Why does he still have one eye?" And he said, "You're going to get shot in one of your eyes." Oh my, so it's now an institution of Liz Cheney's and Trumpytune. It's now literally an institution where the Son of Sams get divinely inspired and have the right to, blow things up in Lebanon and shoot children in Texas and burn down laboratories and release boxes because they're divinely inspired. And what makes them divinely inspired by this is, I guess Liz Cheney thinks she's like God's gift, the way Son of Sam thought he was God's gift. Now you might say there's a difference between Liz Cheney and not as God's gift and Son of Sam, but the difference is in the actual substance of what they're saying. Liz Cheney isn't murdering people. She's not advocating for the Son of Samism when she says it's divinely inspired. What she's saying is she is overawed by the sensibility of justice and cooperation that is enshrined in the Constitution. Well, so am I. I mean, say that then, because when you go around saying that, things are divinely inspired, you paved the way for Donald Trump to say, I was divinely inspired to see the whole thing as fraud. And it's a very dangerous proclivity, but I don't want to get into it too much because there's another issue that's at work, which is deviant nullification. Suppose Liz Cheney was to address what really happened to me. Her kinsmen already have, and I'll tell you how it operated. I said, would you mind recounting the votes because there was evidence that it was accurate. So would you just double check it so that people can't say it wasn't accurate? And they said, no, no, because we don't want to see that there was an implanted neuroplasm causing seizures. Well, what do you mean? There was an impacted neuroplasm causing seizures. No, we don't want to see that thing. Nullification. What was going on then, Miss Clinton, Mr. Obama? Could you spell the names? Could you tell us the divine truth? We won't call you son of Sam because all you did was get Cersei murdered. All you did was blow up Iraq. Could you tell us what divine inspiration was going on? Well, the divine inspiration was that you were jealous. Is there more to it than that? I was jealous. Was there a neuroplasm? More important, son, Reagan didn't know. Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. I thought we were talking about whether there was or was not a neuroplasm. Now you're saying Reagan didn't know. So what they want to do is nullify every single detail. It's very cowardly, sickening, and shrewd. Just nullify it. It doesn't matter how many votes were stuffed in the mail because we were divinely inspired to fail to recognize evidence of any sort. Um, Reagan is a miracle. They were basically saying that too. His miracle work was to see his own election as a miracle, and we're supposed to go, oh, yeah. And it was a miracle, seeing as there's evidence that he participated in the murder of JFK. It's a miracle that he can pull such a fast one over so many people. But they want to nullify all that, so it's nullified. And they want to talk about metaphors. You see, Query Ball's jealousy is a metaphor for his inventiveness. He's the one who thinks he's son of Sam. He's the one whose mind is sending out signals that trigger these militants. And who are these militants allied to is the miracle Reagan. Okay, we could say they weren't, Yoko Ono could say it till she's blue. But they weren't loyal to JFK when they murdered Cersei. Bob Dylan can play his twang bar till his nose falls off. They weren't murdering two more Kennedys out of loyalty to JFK. So what they're doing is nullifying. They want to nullify the existence, and because they want to nullify the people who they committed genocide against. The Axis government crept in, shot its way into power, released COVID, and got revenge on our World War II grannies. It was a geriatricide, plain as day, broad daylight. And they want to nullify it. They want to nullify that Hollywood and Pentagon Disney have creepy new machinery for the national $1 trillion defense that should be questioned as to what its capabilities are, so that people know what they're putting in the hands of a lunatic when they vote Trump. It's perfectly reasonable that people wouldn't be advised that this insane person who tried to storm Congress and hanging the Vice President of the United States in broad daylight threatened a nuclear reprisal against the United States for not going along with it in secret with the help of Peter Gabriel and the Beatles. That's the truth. They want to nullify that. They want to nullify that Reagan's attorneys for the FEMA had me in D.C. the day he claims he was shot and that he waved to me the night before. They want to nullify that. They want to nullify the evidence in Hollywood that John Lennon was working with people who made You Only Live Twice as part of a revenge attack to give a blank check to Yoko Ono to play Son is Sam. They want to nullify it. So the divine inspiration aspect is crooked. You have to be careful with that. What Liz Cheney is arguing is that's legitimate is that the vote should be counted. Now, she should also struggle to say, I admit there was a neuroplasm and it was being tampered with in circumstances that were intended to aggravate isolation in a deaf person who had been tortured. Can you say that, Liz Cheney? Then somebody who wants the whole operation tamper proof from evidence can say he was disturbed by the medical community and he is being threatened by people who put on this show because they want the proceeds from the show. So he has come to erroneous conclusions. And by some miracle, short circuit the plan to use me as extermination bacon and nullify the whole thing because they tortured me. That's what happened. And there's more to it than just um, Reagan validating the people who he claimed shot him for some mysterious reason. I mean, you can construct a storyline that the Crow-Hag Register Coroner and Donald Trump were in cahoots, and that Trump was behind the script and Lennon and Reagan were his victims. Is that what you're trying to do? Well, I'm not going to help you do that, but don't nullify me because there's other contrary evidence that they were in on it. Is why I don't want to. There's other contrary evidence that shows that the whole play that went on was a shrewd little Hollywood media contraption to sort of smother it in Operation Condor, so to speak. And it's just an attempt to get the truth. That's all. I mean, it's not divinely inspired. I mean, life may be divinely inspired. Life may be a miracle. You know, that's for another topic. Certainly, the attempts to secure justice and cooperate in legal processes that are certainly defensible. The democratic legal process is lawful, peaceful, and people should be magnanimous and accepting about it. I mean, that's perfectly reasonable. So, you know, but you don't need to say, oh, if we're not going to let your story be told until you're divinely inspired enough to go along with our crooked contenders, because it doesn't work that way. There's evidence for what happened. And I'm just being used because I'm aware of the evidence. They smushed it in my face. They tortured me. And they're saying, well, you're still on the ball. I'm slave worked. I'm getting essential tremors from carpal tunnel. They poisoned me in the mouth. I'm fighting a gum disease from torture that was evidently divinely inspired by these crooked contenders. And it's nonsense to say that I shouldn't have been compensated on personal injury charges just because of my political beliefs. It's nonsense. But that's what they're saying. You should be tortured, used as extermination bacon because of your political beliefs. And you can't get past that. When you try to get past that, they start pushing Son of Samism on you, you know. But that's the truth of it. You know, and Spike Lee and Donald Trump are Hollywood cahooters in putting this good ship lollipop together that they have, and it's not. it's all based on their absurd obsession with virginity. It's which they, of course, pushed on me and said was all my doing because of my response to the way they indoctrinated me about it and used me about it and tortured me, want to nullify my life and give me a death sentence because I don't go along with their idea that the Warren Commission was divinely inspired, or something like this. I mean, it's too pitiful to credit. The work of the January 6th committee isn't all pitiful. This Cheney isn't 100% a pitiful person. She seems to be, you know, um, fair-minded about the bureaucratic aspects of what we consider checks and balances. And I'm certainly moved that America suffered a nearly catastrophic Hitlerian overthrow against our society that was televised, and to be told that there's still a large minority of people who supported it. I mean, that's scary and weird, but it doesn't help when you know, play the old hogswash that it's all, that anything America does is godly. You know, the search for justice is difficult, painstaking, but it is very real. Donald Trump lost the election, and he did incite an attempt to overthrow the U.S. government. And it is in keeping with the terrible things that were done to me. So when you talk about how frightening and painful it is to be targeted by the President of the United States, don't I know it?